Now that the retargeting is a good base for us to work off of, we can add a control rig to the character for further animation refinement. Right now, the animation on the character is directly connected to the source animation. We need to change that so we have keyframes to work with. Adding a control rig does that while still letting us control the character easily when we start adding animation layers. The first step is to plot the animation and create the control rig. Click on the blue menu in the character controls and select Bake Plot and Bake Plot to Control Rig. As you can see, the viewport changes. We can see the controls from the control rig, and we can see that the character's source is now the control rig. We're also given controls in the character selection menu. Now let's take a look at the key controls and animation layers panels down here. We'll be using these to add layers and adjust the animation on our character. The type menu contains different types of keyframe interpolation. Leave this on auto. Below that we have the active animation layer and buttons that select the previous key, the next key, delete the key, and add a key. Below that we have keying mode, which is translation, rotation, scale, translation and rotation, translation, rotation, scale, current camera, or selected properties. Leave this on TR for now. Additional options will become available when we start selecting character controls. Next to that we have 0, flat, and discontinuous, which control the different types of keys. The auto key button will automatically key a control when it is moved. Below that we have animation layers. Animation layers let us use offsets instead of absolute keying to do our animation. By default, we have a base animation and an empty anim layer 1 layer. If we select the base animation layer now and select one of the character's controls, we can see that there are keyframes on every frame here. This is the animation that was plotted to the control rig from the source animation. If we go back to anim layer 1, we can see that there are no keyframes. Anim layer 1 is empty by default. Working with the control rig is very easy. The rig has two types of controls, FK and IK. These work together seamlessly and do not require manual switching. For easier posing, select the full body button in the character controls window. This allows for the full body to be pulled along with the limb. As you can see, when I pull this hand, the entire body comes with it. But if I push it back, it isn't pulled. If you don't like this behavior, you can select full body, no pull manip, or body part options in the character controls window. Next to these options, you can also see the pinning options. These override the pull controls and allow limbs to be locked in place. By default, both feet have position and rotation pinned. This means that when we move the torso, the feet stay in place. In the selection dialog, the stick type controls are rotation-based FK controls, and the round ball controls are the IK controls. When posing, both types of controls can be combined to get a desired effect. As you can see here, I've rotated the arm using the FK controls, but then I can just as easily use the IK controls to get the character into the pose I want. Lastly, in the character controls section, the IK blend T and R options determine whether the controls are interpolated using FK or IK, that's rotation or position. When we're doing the corrections on the animation, we'll be using animation layers. Unlike normal keyframe animation, layered animation works using offsets. A 0 key means that no offset is applied and that the animation below that layer will not be affected. Any non-zero keyframe information will be applied by adding it to the control. In the animation layers panel, we have controls to add a layer, duplicate a layer, delete a layer, merge layers together, and move layers up and down in the layer stack. On each individual layer, we have the lock control, which prevents it from being edited, the solo control, which makes it so that only that layer's influences are displayed, and the mute control, which disables a particular layer's influence. By default, we have the base animation layer and the anim layer 1, which is empty. The base animation layer cannot be deleted. We also have a weight control at the bottom, which changes the influence of that particular layer and can be animated. In the next video, we'll put these techniques into action and apply the corrections to this animation.